If you're not white, you're missing out. Louis C.K. Having engaged in a frantic job search for an extended period of time, I feel I'm more than qualified to vouch for the self evident truth of this quote. In fact, in that same stand up comedy show, Louis C.K. drives this point home when he wittily challenges white people to deny the privileges accorded to the status of being white. This is especially true when it comes to English language industry. As a living example of this pathetic situation, consider the following statement taken from an article about what language schools look for in English teachers in China. These schools will hire English teachers with one basic requirement: a white face. Nowhere is this ludicrous but lucrative obsession with European look more disgustingly blatant than in the Gulf countries. A friend of mine who works in Saudi Arabia once told me a very interesting story. A Saudi engineering company asked a company in the United States to send them one of their finest engineers. Upon his arrival at the airport, the cream of the crop engineer prostrated on the ground and kissed it in a clear indication that he was a Muslim. Contrary to what one might have expected, the Saudis were aghast at what they were seeing. Apparently, the best engineer did not fit their stereotype of a good engineer because not only did he not possess the so-called European look, but also he was a Muslim like them, which to them ironically translated into inadequacy. So the Palestinian American engineer was taken to a hotel instead of his pre-arranged residence, while the Saudis made the necessary calls to the company in the United States to make it clear to them that they were expecting a white engineer with blue eyes and preferably blonde hair, and not someone who spoke Arabic, which is another indication that he or she is not good enough. A good engineer is someone who can't speak any other language but English, and preferably with an American accent. Given the fact that those Saudis hardly spoke English, it was a bit of a mystery as to how they could tell if someone had an quote unquote American or British accent. You can imagine how shocked the Palestinian American engineer must have felt when he returned to the US and found out that his look fell far short of what was demanded by the client. Turning back to the sinecure job of teaching English, I find it striking that an exception has been made to the axiomatic rule that the ability to speak a language is not synonymous with the ability to teach it. Though I speak Arabic as a mother tongue, I have never entertained the idea that I can teach it, even when I was offered a job to do that when I was living in Iran. But the same is not true of white Europeans and Americans who happen to speak English either as a first or second language. I have seen how some European tourists cash in on their skin color when they run out of money by teaching gullible people who benightly look up to them as the ideal speakers. Michael is a good case in point. Michael is a 20-year-old English teacher in Beijing, and every Saturday at 10 a.m. he tutors a 14-year-old Chinese girl called Daisy. Michael says, sometimes I will go straight from partying to teaching, and because I stink, I spray on loads of cologne. Although Michael is from Austria, the school that hires him tells his students that he is American because they prefer a native speaker. Sometimes he forgets whether he told the student he was from Connecticut or Chicago. Michael was hired without any previous teaching experience and given no training. Just thrown into a room with students and told, go teach. Tragicomic as it may seem, this state of affairs is extremely disturbing to me as it highlights the absurdity of the fixation on being white and its far-reaching implications. Leaving aside the duplicity of the school and Michael, it's very obvious that the poor learners are shortchanged as they are unlikely to make any headway in learning English. It's also clear that everyone is implicated in this crime. Michael has no qualms about using his skin color to make a quick buck, The schools are driven solely by the lure of easy profit, and the parents of students who have bought into this charade without any critical thinking whatsoever. How have things come to such a pass? Well, we need to go back in time and retrace the trajectory of how we ended up here. However, it's beyond any shadow of doubt that it has to do with the colonization of the mind, whereby the oppressed are made to see the lifestyle of the oppressor as naturally superior, and the only way to get ahead in life is to adopt their lifestyle, including their linguistic capital accent. Likewise, the prevailing ethos of the free market economy, pioneered mostly by white people, revolves around the dehumanizing profit motive, with the result that very little attention is paid to the substance of an activity. Everyone involved in this pathetic situation is driven by profit, which has an inbuilt tendency to commodify, standardize, and trivialize everything. In such a setup, the students are seen as customers that must be attracted by hook or crook, which in the case of language education entails preying on the ignorance of the learners and their parents. Since these processes of commodification, colonization of the mind, and cultural hegemony have been historically driven by Europeans, their skin color has come to be associated with progress, success, prestige, high class, etc. And the dominated have, for the most part, successfully internalized the dehumanizing values of the dominant. It's amazing how much you can get away with if you happen to be white.